Good morning, Matthew. Really appreciate you waking up nice and early to come on for this interview. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good as well. So, the reason I invited you on is because I saw some wins from you. I believe it was copywriting and freelancing campuses. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you explain what they were about?
Yeah, so I own a marketing agency called Legacy Media Team, and recently been working with some fairly large clothing brands, and we've been running advertisements for them. And the screenshots that I posted in the wins section were actually some Shopify analytics from my client, one of my clients at least, from February, 1st of February to the 28th.
Okay. And could you clarify what figures those were?
The amount,
Yep.
32,000,
Okay. So is that just for March or just for February?
just for February.
Just February. And how
Yeah.
has January been and before that?
January was pretty good. It was like 29,000 in January, but then in February we were able to get that up to 32.
Okay. So in total, what would that be over those 2 months?
52,000, 51,000
Okay,
around there.
perfect. Great. So, did you start your legacy media is it agency? Would that be the right way to call it? Did you
Yeah.
start your agency before you joined the real world or after?
Right after, a little bit afterwards, maybe like 2, 3 months afterwards, I joined.
Okay, interesting. And how much has the real world contributed in terms of growth of that agency? Would you wholly attribute it to the real world or no?
It, at least like 95% of it, yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And in what ways would that be?
Well, at first, I was just doing copywriting, and my plan was to just be a copywriter for a little while. But then I decided to, well, I started hearing about Facebook advertising and how lucrative it could be. So I decided to dip my toes into that. And once I did, I kind of just started liking it a little bit more than copywriting. And so I transitioned from copywriting over to that. And I carried the skills from copywriting over towards Facebook advertising, and it correlates a little bit. So
Interesting. Okay. And did you have any copywriting experience prior to joining the real world?
no, I didn't even know what it was.
I hear that quite often. Okay, for clarification, when did you join the real world?
August 24th,
Okay. And then your company started scaling when?
in December, like mid-December.
So between that time span, what were you doing? Were you putting in a lot of hours or maybe not taking it as seriously at first?
So I guess I was taking it seriously. It's just mainly I was a little bit hesitant to start, and I wanted to gather up as much information from the real world as possible before I actually started reaching out to anybody. So that whole time I was still learning, I just wasn't putting it into action.
Okay, I see. Now, going on to how different would you say the material has been from what you've seen in the real world compared to what's out there on the internet?
I would say it's a lot more detailed. It's it's almost copy and paste. It's pretty laid out for you. It's definitely worth the $50. I would say that.
Okay. And how different would you say your average day is now compared to before you joined the real world?
So before I joined the real world, from right before I joined to the day I joined, um, it was pretty much video games, being lazy, not just wasting my time really. But after I joined the real world, I started to see how much time you actually had to put into it if you wanted it to be successful and be able to make anything of yourself. And so my day has had to change. I can't play video games anymore if I actually want to do anything with myself. So.
Right. And a bit more in depth onto so now what are you doing in terms of day to day that is different?
So day to day, I wake up, I get on my laptop, When I shower, I get on my laptop, I start emailing, I work on my clients' advertisements, begin emailing again, then I work out later in the day. I don't really like working out early in the day, and it's pretty much just work now. So
Okay. And what would you have to say to people who would call that excessive, working so much?
if that's excessive, then go ahead and stay broke, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. And now, in terms of that mindset shift, what would you say contributed to it most from playing video games to working so much now? Was it the community or something else?
It was just what I realized I had to do if I wanted to make this work. I couldn't sit and play video games for 5 hours and neglect this. So it was mainly it forced me to change, really. So if I
Okay.
wanted to do anything with this.
Let me see how to phrase this better from my end. So, were you seeing other people winning? Is that what maybe contributed to that mindset shift? Was it maybe something else from the community? Because I mean, there was some kind of catalyst there, which I'm trying to get at. So I'm wondering
I
what that
got
would
you.
have been.
I got you. Yeah. So every day for the first couple months, I actually was checking the wins every single day. I wasn't making any money, but I was going in there. I was seeing some people would be making 1,000, 1,200, sometimes even 5,000. And I would see that and I'd be like, just send another email. So I would just keep sending them out. And eventually one of them worked. And so, yeah, I'm just working on scaling so far. So
Yeah. So was it specifically when you got that first client that it really showed you it was possible and you were able to really put in more time into after that? Was that it?
yeah, I would say so
Okay.
for sure.
Cool. I mean, that's what I was trying to get at before with the question. Okay,
I
great.
gotcha.
And is there any more to say for what kind of an impact did the community have on you?
So I would say a fairly good one. It's really good to see a bunch of, and by a bunch, I mean like 200,000 other people inside of one platform that all have the same goal in mind. And that really helps push you forward when you see a bunch of other people doing it. Why can't I do it? So
Agreed. Now, outside of maybe client outreach, what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced when you first started out with copywriting?
actually getting good at it, making sure that my writing was not terrible. I would just I watched each, module, each video probably about 100 times just to make sure that I was actually doing everything right. But yeah, I'd say just practicing and getting better at it was the hardest part, but it's worth it. So
Interesting. 100 times. Is that exaggerating or actually around 100 times?
I don't think it's exaggerating. No, really, I watched it. I watched each one a lot.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. And yeah, so you'd say it's been the consistency as well, watching those videos, consistently implementing everything that eventually caused not necessarily mindset shift, but you saw the improvements in your copy and maybe agency as well because of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Consistency is the number one thing that's going to get you going forward, for sure.
And now moving on to what would you say have been the three biggest lessons you've learned from your time in the real world?
So I would say working hard is probably the biggest one, staying consistent. Um, Professor Andrew, he preaches do a lot of push-ups. So I do that. Working hard, staying consistent. Those are the big ones.
Okay. And will you leave it there or will you have any more to talk about?
So if yeah, copywriting related, um, using inspiration from other good copywriters that you can see. If you see an ad while you're scrolling through any platform, use that as inspiration and that can help you quite a bit.
Okay. So I guess we'll leave that question there. Now, moving on to since you're on this trajectory, where do you see your life heading in 6 months to 1 year?
Hopefully, retiring my dad so he doesn't have to work his job anymore, and building up my agency to be making, a good decent amount of money. My main goal is to retire my dad so he doesn't have to work his job anymore. And I'm on that path. It's slow and hard, but worth it. So
Okay. What does your dad think about what you're doing?
he's supportive of it. He's all in on it. He actually helps me out with it quite a bit. So
In what way?
so he's learning advertising as well. He's been learning a little bit of copywriting as well, but he's another voice and another opinion that can help me, stay in check while I'm actually working. So
That's great. Love to hear that. So I'm wondering, what kind of an impact has Tate had on you, if any? And does your dad approve of Tate's message as well?
yeah, so he's had a pretty big impact on me. He's actually the reason I joined the real world. I started liking what he was saying about hard work, stuff like that. My dad, he supports Andrew Tate. He's actually been following his arrest more than I have while I've been working on my agency. I've been a little bit busy working. He's been following it more than I have. So
Great, great. Love to hear that. And now for my final question. What advice would you have to people who might be on the fence about joining the real world? They might be thinking, man, maybe it's a scam, right? I'll get scammed of my $50. I can't believe he would do such a thing. What would you have to say to them from what you've seen in the real world?
I would say you probably already spend $50 a week on some meaningless crap at the grocery store anyways. So why not just take that $50 and put it into something that might help you grow better as a person?
Right. I like that. And now for people who want to find out more about you or contact you, where can they do so?
So Instagram, I have a Instagram page, Legacy Media Team. That's just all one word. Uh, that's pretty much it actually. Just Instagram so far.
Yeah, so I'll add that to the description of the video. And Matthew,
Cool.
thank you for your time. I look forward to potentially doing a follow up in future to see how things get scaled for you. And until then, I wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too.